I noticed in your testimony you left out one sentence because it's hard to even describe the depredations, right? But I think it's important that we do describe it so people understand the evil that is being perpetrated by this open border policy. And the sentence I'm going to read it: unaccompanied minors are especially vulnerable while en route to the border. In a specific case I researched, a trafficker harvested a 12-year-old's eye for $15,000 in Mexico.
That's correct, sir.
My guess, as a criminologist, you've heard a lot worse than that.
Yes, sir. Yes, Senator.
Do you want to share any of those things? Again, I'm not trying to be morbid here, but I think it's extremely important that people realize this isn't just, we're just not inconveniencing these people. This is human depredation.
Right. The former sex traffickers that I've interviewed in prison have described what they call farms. Farms exist both on the U.S. and Mexican side of the border. And it ultimately is where somebody that is either no longer valued to the cartel or is suspected of being an informant or suspected of other violations of the cartel are taken. And those are basically, when we see on the news about X amount of bodies buried or in acid, those are what the Mexican cartels refer to as farms.
Mr. Rodas, you spoke of your knowledge of MS-13. Also, as Chairman of Homeland Security, we held hearings on these gangs. I mean, what they do just for initiation is horrific. I'll read you. This is out of to become a homeboy, a Chico's, an initiate must commit at least one murder of a rival gang member. Once Chicos were voted in by members of a clique, leaders would slowly count to 13 while gang members beat the prospective member. That's just an initiation, right? They got to murder a rival member, and then it goes worse from that. I mean, what they actually do to girls, the mutilation, the rapes, the murders. So you're aware then, in your whistleblower, and what you saw our government agencies. And by the way, this isn't willful ignorance. It's not willful negligence. This is malevolent to allow children, knowing full well that children have been sold, that people's eyes and organs are being harvested, that boys and girls are going to be raped and mutilated and, in the end, buried in a farm. They released MS-13. Can you describe a little bit in terms of what you know about MS-13?
Well, sadly, as I said, my husband is from El Salvador, and 15 years ago, El Salvador was one of the most violent places on the planet. So we're talking the entire globe, run by gangs like MS-13 and 18th Street Gang, known as transnational criminal organizations. But a DHS whistleblower revealed in 2021 that members on transnational criminal organizations like MS-13 and 18th Street Gang began for the very first time this new and emerging threat of sponsoring children through the UAC program. Understand, in the history of the UAC program, it had never happened before. Never happened. Why is it that we now have these violent gangs? And in the particular case that got me walked off the site, it just so happened this female operator worked in a hotel. How convenient. So understand, these are known sex traffickers, labor traffickers, drug traffickers, and have no regard for human life whatsoever. And if anybody saw the recent interview of Tucker and Bukele, Bukele, the president of El Salvador, said that MS-13 is involved in satanic ritual abuse and sacrificing children.
And people within our federal agencies knowingly, willingly, malevolently are allowing children just to get them out the door because they're overwhelmed through this open border policy. They're willingly letting them go into the open arms of MS-13 and maybe even worse gangs.
Yes, Senator, and I wish I could tell you
What is your
different.
current status? I mean, you were retaliated against. Have you been returned to work? Have they made you whole in terms of retaliation? Are you still being retaliated over?
Well, very fortunately, I was a detailee to HHS. So at the time that they put me under investigation and walked me off the site, I think they believed my home agency would fire me. I think maybe they didn't calculate that at the Office of Inspector General, we protect whistleblowers, and especially whistleblowers who report that children are going to gang members on taxpayer dollars. So my agency protected me.
Okay, so in your statement, you also said that for your personal safety was threatened by who? By the gangs? By the agency? Why did you feel threatened? Why did you need escorts?
Well, what's interesting is at the moment, I was just scared that they had done this to me. I thought I was going to lose my job. I didn't think I was in physical danger. They thought I was in physical danger.
But by who, though? By the gangs?
What's interesting is that they feared that the retaliation would be from the agency, not from the gangs.
That's quite telling. In my letter, reacting to your interview by Project Veritas in November 2022, we wrote, it's not only my letter, for the colleagues, the most reprehensible claim by Ms. Rodas occurred when she raised concerns to command center executives. These are HHS agency employees about placing another unaccompanied child in a questionable home. According to Ms. Rodas, someone told her, quote, "I think you need to understand we only get sued if we keep kids in care too long. We don't get sued by traffickers. Are you clear? We don't get sued by traffickers." So my question is this malevolence. Who? How many? Again, I'm not expecting you to name names right now. Have you turned those names over to the Inspector General? Have you reported on the supervisors, these executives who, so these names are known?
Yes, Senator, they are known.
Has any accountability, has there been any discipline enacted or taken out against these individuals?
So to my knowledge, Senator, we're not made aware of ongoing investigations.
Of course not.
I'm sure you've heard that from this
But
side
I mean,
of the
have you
table
seen
before.
anybody? Have you seen anybody walked out?
No, sir.
Their belongs in a cardboard box and shown the door.
No, Senator. I haven't seen anyone suspended or debarred.
Ms. White, what about you?
No, I have not. Not one person has, to my knowledge,
Again, have you provided names of individuals who
Yes.
knowingly just looked the other way,
Yes.
knowing exactly what was happening to these children?
Yes,
You've provided names.
I've provided names. I was not walked off the site because I didn't have a MS-13 case, but I had multiple cases that I reported on. One in particular where we sent 329 children to an address in Houston, Texas, right? Two buildings, two garden apartment buildings.
That's a really generous foster
So,
family, isn't it?
Very kind of them.
Take on
Very kind of
329
them.
kids?
Yeah. So no, to my knowledge, no one has been reprimanded for what they've done. No.
Have you experienced any retaliation?
I have not. They let me leave the site. Gave me a thank you letter, actually acknowledging that I had found trafficking on the site. Thanked me for putting together programs to train the case managers. So they let me leave on good terms. But again, I didn't have an MS-13 case.
So I have to believe that most people working in the agencies are humane, are concerned about the children. I'd like to believe that. But my final question really is, what percentage of management, of people working in these agencies are fully aware of this, understand exactly what's happening, and either are directing detailees or employees to look the other way? I mean, literally directing it. So they're completely responsible and culpable versus just acquiescing and going, I can't be as brave as these two whistleblowers. I'm just going to keep my head down, keep my job. Can you give us some sort of feel for the people who are actually culpable versus what percent know it but aren't willing to come forward?
Well, the HHS staff knows they won't be held accountable. As you can see, you've sent letters to them. They don't even answer them. So they know nothing's going to happen to them, absolutely nothing. However, there are good people that are working on these sites and working at HHS, but they're terrified to come forward. Tara Rodas and I have a certain level of protection because we work at different agencies and we were just detailees for a temporary amount of time. However, the HHS workers, they are terrified. They have seen examples made of people that come forward. So any HHS whistleblower gets fired. They're terminated.
So this is a department that is rotten from the
Yes,
top.
to the core.
And again, the
Yes.
question is, how far down does it go before you just get to the people who just want to keep their heads down and are terrified of, the snakehead at the top? Senator Cornyn.